Heidi, thanks for joining.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I'm okay. I think I have though the summer malaise that comes from I'm more of like a fall person when there's activity. I don't like the inaction of August. It's kind of depressing for me, the inertia of it. So,
I
yeah.
can understand that. I think it's a good time to get out in nature. Like I kind of have the same thing where I don't really feel very inspired in the studio necessarily. Fall is really a time of great energy. It's productive. The city comes back and everything's alive. And we really do tap into the greater community, right, as an artist in New York.
Yeah. I also think this is the first summer in a long, long time that I haven't had a show to prepare for. Like there's just nothing to prepare for. And I think maybe that has something to do with it because I like to be busy. And it's kind of like, oh, this is a proper summer break. And I'm really not too interested in that. And also, but also my studio doesn't have any air conditioning. So I kind of have to go in there and forget my body. It's just like it's like a sauna. I'm just like sweating nonstop, getting my sweat into the paint. It's also kind of a hard thing to go when I don't have a show to prepare for because I know it's going to be grueling to like make work in that environment.
You have to get out of there.
I've been at that studio for almost 14 years now, and I don't
Mm.
see myself leaving it at
Oh, no,
all.
I mean just for the summer, just
Oh,
temporarily,
yeah, yeah.
just for a
I mean,
bit, maybe.
I should, but I mean, I am this summer because it's a proper summer vacation, but also have to get ready to teach because I teach in the fall. I'm teaching a couple classes. So,
Where do you teach?
well, I'm just a visiting professor at SUNY Purchase. Yeah. And so I'll be teaching actually junior painting, which I haven't taught in a long time. So I'm a little nervous, but also like I think teaching is really great. Do you teach at
I taught in grad school, but I never taught after that. I
all?
really
Okay.
enjoyed it though. I really enjoyed the experience. It changed how I saw my own work because I was having to explain ideas and why I was interested in certain things, but I was trying not to be too judgmental, or I was trying not to like shape somebody into making things that I wanted to make. How do you navigate that in teaching?
Well, I've been teaching on and off for 10 years. So I had a tenure track job at Alfred University about 5 years ago, and it gets to be overwhelming because teaching for me at its best, you get to talk about ideas with young people or introduce new ideas. And at its worst, I felt like a glorified babysitter because, and I've had a mentor tell me this, teaching is expectation versus reality. And you want to believe that people care enough about ideas to want to participate in what you're putting out, and half the time they're not. And I think young people are very disenfranchised. And I've seen it over a 10-year span where I kind of have to temper what I want them to learn and actually what they want to learn. So I always do that. Every time I start a class, I introduce, the syllabus, but I'm like, hey, but listen, this is a choose your own adventure kind of situation. What are you guys interested in? What's helpful for you? What do you want to get out of this class? Because I'd rather tailor it to that than my own experience or ego of like, no, but I want you to learn this thing when they just actually don't care. And half the time I don't blame them because the way the world is, they've been through COVID, they've been, the everything, even the financial aspect of how we live now is fraught. So I think it's kind of like, all right, well, let's have a good class. Let's enjoy this. Let's get rid of everything else and have a good time here. So that's how I navigate. That's how I try to navigate it. But I also think it's really important to teach. That's why I still keep my hand in it because it could humble you very quickly. And because the students, they don't care about you. They don't care about your practice. They don't care about what you've done. They only care what they can get out of you. And so you're kind of like, all right, yeah, I don't matter. And I think that's a really good thing, especially nowadays where people are so into themselves and their own experience. You're kind of like, I'm a non-entity and I'm okay with that. I'm just a vessel of knowledge that they want to take a drink from, and I'll be that for them. That's fine, you know.
That sounds really good for you to have that mindset too, where you're just like, okay, what can they get out of this? not
Mhm.
what do I want them to get out of it. And it seems like it's a balancing act of managing expectations, yours and theirs, figuring out what's useful and what they can take with them.
Yeah. I think when I first started teaching, you know, that Dead Poet Society, that film,
Yeah.
and it's like Robin Williams, it's like Captain, my Captain. And I went in there thinking I'm going to change lives. And the only life that was changed was mine. And because I was just navigating all these feelings, because you're in the studio alone, right? You don't have to cater to anyone. You could just be in your own headspace and not have to share anything or be professional. It's going into that environment as an artist where we're used to just doing our own thing. It's a rude awakening because you have to navigate other people's feelings and their frustrations about their work. And it kind of, I've talked to a lot of professor friends where there's a lot of doubt in these young people, right? Of course there is. They're going to school for a reason. They have that doubt. They don't know what they want their work to look like. They don't know what kind of life they want as an artist, even if they want to be an artist after school. And so when you're confronted with doubt every day, I think for some people it will make you doubt your own work, or it solidifies the kind of path that you're on. You're like, no, I know what I'm doing. Or you're just like, maybe I'm like one of these students. I'm still grasping for what my art means to me or how I should think about it. And it's a really interesting balance of that. And it's so funny because they don't really have an open mind because they're so frustrated because they have an idea in their head and they don't know how to execute it. And if they're not doing it the right way, which most of the time I don't know what the right way is for them because it's in their minds, and they're not open to kind of changing it even though they haven't even started. So it's one of these things too where I mean there's artists like that where you have to be really malleable and you see that it's so rigid. So for me, I've become like, nah, nothing matters. Who cares? That could change, whatever. Nothing is set in stone. It's it's interesting to see them trying to be open and just hitting a wall. And it's kind of like maybe you learn that over time to be open. Maybe you start being very rigid, have strong opinions, strong ideas, right? We all did. I was very opinionated when I was young. And when you're young, you think you're right. And it's only when you get older, you're like, I don't know anything. I don't even know if I have opinions about things because the things I cared about, I don't care about anymore. So you're kind of, I think you're a bit more malleable when you're older. So to deal with that wall of it's like you're not coming in here. I don't care what I learn because I do a lot of demos too, because obviously into oil paint. I'm into the materiality of everything. So they just don't, sometimes they don't want to hear it. And that's interesting for me. I'm like, well, why not? Because they already have an idea in their head of what things should look like and how things should feel and how things should act. It's interesting.
So these are the undergrads.
No, even grad students. Also teach at the New York Academy of Art. I teach a critique and discussion theory class in the spring semester, and I've been doing that, I think, for the last 5 years. And that school is so traditional. You know this school in
Yeah, I do.
Tribeca?
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's what I love about it though, because they have so many rules because it is so traditional that we kind of have to the way I teach the class, it's kind of like, listen, okay, you have this set of principles that you have to follow because you want to paint like an old master. Okay, but what do you do with that kind of knowledge now? And they always ask me, how do I be contemporary? And it's one of those things where you are contemporary, but the means that you're expressing it maybe you're going to have to bend it a little. You're going to have to twist it. And these are grad students, and they're all like older, they're 25 to 45 or 50. So that's interesting to teach that class at that school.
Interesting to teach people older than yourself, right?
Yeah, but a lot of times it's great because they've been in like corporate America and they've finally given themselves permission to make art because they couldn't or they didn't think they could because they had to have a solid job, following the American trajectory of, it's only after they retire do they think like, oh, okay, I can finally make art. So I respect those people a lot.
Is it sometimes pretty interesting stuff they're making?
They're searching. They're searching because they've never been in that position to be allowed to search. So, yeah, I like their enthusiasm. I really do. And it's kind of that takes time, right? It takes time in your own work to find the thread or to find the foundation in your work. I don't think that once you have the foundation, I don't know if that ever changes. And you can talk to this as well. Um, I think though you have that foundation or that certainty that what you are doing matters, and then how you express it or move around that foundation is kind of where the work gets interesting, right?
Yeah,
Then you're like, okay, I have this basic idea of the importance of my studio practice. What can I explore now that I've set that up for myself? I mean, right? That's how artists are. That's where you get confidence as an artist. So they don't have confidence yet, but they're trying to build the foundation. And that's interesting. And I try to help them with that because it's important.
I would say number one.
Yeah.
The most important thing is just energy, enthusiasm, excitement.
Yeah. I I still to this day, the only place where I feel exactly myself and feel good is in my studio. I don't know if I feel that way in any other space because it's my own. No one can come in there. No one can destroy that space to me. It's a protected space where everything else you're living with someone or you're in a restaurant, whatever it is, you're traveling. I still think of the studio as like, oh my God, I mean, my studio is gross. Like I don't even have electricity. I don't have lights, so I paint in the natural light. I paint like a 9 to 5 painter, and it doesn't have air conditioning. And there's mice. It's just gross. And I have a couch that my dogs tore up. And I like it that way because I feel like I'm able to make a big mess. I don't want to feel precious in the studio. I want to feel like I can wreck all these walls, I can wreck the floor, and I love that feeling. And but it's a place where I'm like, oh, I don't make it nice. Some people make their studios nice. They bring in plant. Do you have like plants in your
I
studio?
do, yeah. Yeah, well, it's a live workspace. It kind of changes a little bit. I understand what you mean though about not wanting the precious space. Well, in the context of your work, I can especially see it because it is so free,
Hmm.
and you bring that freedom into the work, a real sense of playfulness, and you can't be worried about getting paint on the floor or whatever.
No, and I've been doing a lot of pouring on the canvas, and I just put a piece of big paper down to catch the paint, but it's really a messy situation. Uh, I mean, I'll give you an example of how crazy the studio is. I had almost finished this painting for a show I was having in Germany, and I laid it down on the ground because a lot of times I have to put the work on the ground so it could rest and just not move around, whatever. The next day I come in and someone from the floor above me had poured wax on the ground and it seeped through and it was all over my painting. I was kind of like, well, I guess that's not done. But I like those challenges too. I always like when things get messed up because that's the opportunity I have to kind of give up. And I only find freedom when I've given up. Like, do you ever have that? You're getting close to something, it's not working. So you're like, fuck it, I'm going to make this move, and it destroys it a bit, but it also liberates you, right? You just feel like, well, I can't fuck it up more than it already is. So where do I go from here? Let's have fun. That's where I think innovation happens. When I've given up on things, that's when I finally take a chance and it becomes dangerous, and I like the danger of it. So that for me is in the studio, it's all about problem solving. So if things like there's like debris in my studio, I think there was a pigeon in there one time and it got feathers all in my work. I was like, okay, what do I do with this? You know, I mean, you wouldn't notice it. You wouldn't notice it if you look in the work, but it's it's the rebuilding that I'm interested in, not just the when you start something and it's the middle and you know where it's going. I don't like to know where the work goes. I think that's boring. I can't work that way.
Well, it shows in your work. So there's a real sense of exploration, of excitement, of anticipation, and it's all in there. It's all embedded in the work. I get what you're saying, though. There's like a healthy desperation that happens when your back is against the wall. It's not working. Nothing's working. You got to try something completely new.
Hmm. Yeah. And I mean, there's been times where the shippers have come and they're packing up the other work, and I'm like, I don't know about this thing, and I'll just do it and be like, well, I have to live with this. And usually it forces my hand because uh, I'm not, I won't say like I fiddle with the work too much. Like I like to sit with it, but I need it to have that spontaneity. I need it to have something that's not prescribed in the way it should go. Like there has to be a rub, right? There has to be something opposite of where the work wants to go. And that's how I feel like I need to work.
It has to be alive.
Yeah, it has to be alive. It has to be hard. I always say every time I start a new body of work, I feel like I'm getting back into kind of an emotionally abusive relationship because it's hard. I hate the beginning. I hate the middle. I feel like if I'm working on a painting for 2 or 3 months, I probably have a week when I'm in love and I can have fun and I'm actually painting. The rest is just setting it up and setting it up to fail sometimes or setting it up to have a special kind of connection with it or moment. But I feel like I have one good week, or maybe sometimes even 2 days of like, yeah, this is what painting is. This is how it should be. And you feel like a painter, right? You feel kind of like an abstract expressionist. You're kind of like, I have the freedom to do whatever I want. Because half the time I think the painting boxes you in, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it goes, it goes in its own direction sometimes. And I know people think, no, you have control. It's like, no, sometimes you make moves, just like when you're having a conversation or a relationship with someone. There's things that can't be unsaid. And I think in a painting, you'll make moves and you'll step back and be like, God damn, why is it there? Like I've made these moves, but why is it there? I don't want it there. I have to take it somewhere else. I don't know if that's how you work, but.
You're making me wish I was more free in my own work. I feel like I'm so planned by comparison, but you're really what you're describing to me seems like the best possible moments are a space of
Yeah.
possibility, exploration, and just being in the moment in that painting.
Yeah. Well, it's hostility too. It's revenge. I was talking to my good friend Lauren Seiden, and we were talking about our studio practice. And she was talking about the idea of revenge, which is a motivational thing, right? We want to take revenge on people's perception of us or whatever. We're fighting against something. And she said for her that was changing for her. And I thought about that. I was like, man, when you take the thing that was motivating your work out of the equation, how does your work change? One, and how do you make work? How are you motivated? It's one of these things. And I wonder if I've ever talked to somebody who said their motivation was love. I don't know. I'm not sure about that one because my motivation is anger. Yeah, like I have a lot of anger that I take out in the studio.
Oh,
But
interesting. I had that before, but it shifted. It became more about love now.
yeah,
Not about the paintings aren't about love. That and saying
yeah,
that sounds like I know I run the risk of sounding completely silly by by
yeah,
saying that. Maybe it's more nuanced than that. It's not just love. It's like, oh, I love this. I love it all the time. It might
yeah,
be, that'd be crazy, and impossible. But you might, for me, it's almost like I ease into it. Like you start off just like, oh, I don't want it. Like, okay, I guess I'll do it. Come on, forcing yourself a little
yeah,
bit and sort of harden yourself, and then you get into the pocket, whatever it is, the zone. You're there for an hour or two, and then you fall into it, and you don't even realize. Perhaps it's like being in a relationship when you're with somebody, and it sneaks up on you. Oh,
yeah,
I really like this person. I really like this moment, this feeling, whatever it is.
yeah. And then you recognize it's fleeting, so you try to enjoy it before it goes downhill. I think
Yeah.
that's but also I find myself being unsatisfied with what I'm working on when I focus on an image rather than what the materials are doing. I find like, oh, this painting sucks or I'm not engaged when I'm focusing on what the painting is trying to do as as opposed to how how to do it. Because I'm more like I want to be innovative with paint. Like I love oil paint and it's a traditional medium, right? I want to figure out a way to kind of, I don't know, turn it on its head in a way. And it's hard, but I don't want it to just be an image. I think a lot of painting that happens now it looks good on Instagram, right? Because it's an image. And then you go in person to the show, and it's just a thin layer of oil paint, and the surface is not considered, and it's just a picture. And there's a big difference for me of something being a picture as opposed to a painting. And I think about making a painting and not a picture. And then sometimes you're left with something that doesn't make sense. And you're like, well, the image is not there. So then maybe you kind of have to correct. But I think that should happen after you have an exploration with paint, right? Or what it means to be a painter. I take that seriously.
That's where it's at. You're really fighting this, not necessarily fighting, but you're really having to balance the image and the object. It has to be both.
Yeah, and it's like this old argument, right? The
Yeah.
objecthood of painting. But I have to think about it almost like a sculpture. Like I want to build it up like a sculpture. I feel like I'm a lot of frustrated things. Like I would have loved to have been a novelist. I would love to make sculpture or ceramics because I think the level of skill that's needed is so impressive and so vast. But I'm just a painter. So how can I take all the frustrations of what I can't be and put it into the work so I feel like I'm not being left out of all the things I can't have. Does that make sense? It's kind of I use painting as a way to make up for any disappointment I have in my life and my life choices. I know that sounds heavy, but it's true.
Well, it's so centering. Really, what I'm hearing is that you're really more interested in the process than the
Yeah.
product.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And then if I get something I like, well, then I'm like, oh, that was lucky. And I always say this thing. There was this golfer, I don't know who said it, but he's like, the harder I work, the luckier I get. That's how I feel about the studio. That's why every painter tells you you just got to stay in there all day. And they're partially right because what nothing's going to happen in the studio if you're not there, right?
Yeah, and also it requires a deeper kind of time. Painting is
Yeah.
slow. It's a slow
Yeah.
process. It is one of the few things that slows down my own consciousness when I'm in the studio. Because you're out there, the world's so quick. Just as you were saying earlier, a lot of paintings you see or look very good as an image, but as an
Mhm.
object, they really fall short.
Yeah. And I get very disappointed.
Yeah.
I want to have that tactile presence because paint lends itself to that. So it's so easy to just consider that. And there's not a consideration for it. And I get frustrated a lot about contemporary painting. And I guess that's why when I teach, I try to stress that. I'm like, oh, what's the feel of this? What's the weight of this? When someone's painting, there's a lot of portraiture or still life. And you don't even feel like they're separate objects, or you're painting a portrait, but the skin is exactly like the shirt. They're painting it exactly the same way. I'm not saying texturally they have to be different, but they definitely have to have a certain feel to them. They have to be handled in different ways. And I think people just, it's almost like they're printing a photograph and it's just on this paper. Whereas, you have a canvas, you have the paint, you have mediums. There's so much to work with, and it maybe shouldn't be as uniformed. And I'm not talking about stylistic choices. I'm thinking of it in a more of a conceptual way of how you're thinking about the surface, right? That's something to me that's important.
What are the deeper qualities? What are the properties of that material? Every pigment has different properties. What we've done is we've put additives that homogenize these pigments, which actually
Yeah.
they're like you notice some companies like Williamsburg, they used to have this ultramarine blue that was very stringy. And I was
Yes,
like,
I
why is it?
love
Remember
that.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
happened? Is that gone?
When Golden bought them, they got a little more uniform. But
That's really sad to me. I love that.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that's like the quality of the thing. I mean, Golden still does a good job with the paints they make, but I remember it used to be like the alizarin was ground really coarse because that was the way the pigment actually was. So if you get at a deep level of, it's not just paint, what's the quality of that linen and canvas? What are the quality of the brushes? What's every material you use? And then the quality of what the image, everything, I
Yeah.
think should be equally considered in a painting.
Yeah, and I used to make very, very figurative work, and it was very pleasing because, that was what, 2014,
Mhm.
2013, and then you had a lot of figurative painters, figuration came back in a very big way, right? And weaning ourselves off of that moment, I think, in terms of how we think of figuration, whatever. And I wouldn't say it was cartoonish, but it was definitely, I look at that old work and it was almost like I wanted attention in a certain way because I had to articulate very specifically what I wanted to say. And I think the difference is now I don't give a shit about anybody um, if they love the work or hate the work. I think there's a transition you go through, and as you get older, where you don't care about certain things, and I don't care about the one-to-one ratio of this is a chair in a painting, and they look and it's proper, and it's a chair or it's a body, and it's been represented in the same way. I'm so tired of that. I'm so tired of things looking as they should and not us redefining it. And I think that's why I work with the body, right? I think about the gender of a body, but I don't want to see it in the same way I've been seeing it. I don't want to see it in portraiture or scenes of naked lounging women or, it's a traditional thing. It's a traditional mold that I feel like, why aren't we breaking that up more? Why aren't we breaking up the idea of portraiture or still life or whatever it is? I don't have the answer. I'm trying to figure it out. But I want to ask the question. I want more painters to ask that question. Why are things represented the way they are? And for me, I just got really frustrated. I see that figurative work and I just wanted to be part of the conversation. I really wanted to maybe belong in some way. And I don't think I was necessarily, even though I've made my career, I had a career trajectory, but I don't know. I think it's time to break the normalcy that we see in painting because things are so normal, right? They're homogenous, they're generic. I'm so tired of it. I really am.
That's really wonderful to hear that because I think we're so encouraged by the culture to make a product, a
Hmm.
recognizable product, something that's easily digestible, and you're rewarded. Everybody
Yeah.
is telling you the wrong thing. We have this positive reinforcement just for the wrong things in life. I think often I can't be too critical. I'm a part of the culture. I'm a consumer as
Yeah.
well. I'm a participant in the materialist aspects of the culture, but
Yeah.
you can see the way in which it is pernicious and also can hold you back.
Yeah. Well, and it's also you have to answer to that genre, right? You have to know why you're expressing certain ideas or taking part of in them, right? And I think there was a point where you couldn't be a dumb artist, right? You had to have an explanation for everything. Now, I think that's kind of going away where you're just like, well, I made it and it's this thing and I keep making this product over and over and over again. I mean, I had a friend a few years back, they made a name for themselves by making a specific kind of body of work. And that was the first time they were able to support themselves as an artist. And I think once you have a taste for that, it becomes wrapped up in your self-worth because you're finally being recognized for the thing you love to do. So why would you want to give that up? At the same time, they're like, well, I want to change, but this is what sells and this is what I'm known for. And eventually, I think that sustains you for a while as an artist, but people turn on you very fast because they're like, "Oh, you're not being innovative." It's like they don't encourage you to change, but if you don't change, they punish you for it. And I've been at a dinner with a collector naming off artists and be like, "Oh, they're done." It's like, "Oh, you get to decide they're done because everybody has their work now. Everybody has the same body of work in their collection. So now the artist is blacklisted or done, even though you participated in pigeonholing this artist. So it's one of those things where you see young people that are like, I need a brand. It's like, what are you talking about? That's not, I mean, it might work for a while. I think it does, but I don't know if you, I guess it depends on what kind of career you want, right? Like some people are like, no, I just want a bit of money and whatever, or I'll do something else. But for me, I want to keep painting until I'm dead, until I'm gonna die. Uh, but that's, sustaining that long of a career, you're going to go through so many ups and downs. And I don't know, you got to be prepared. And I think one way to prepare for that is to not give in to the idea of a brand or an idea that you have about your work that can't change, right? Like I think that's kind of an impossible way to sustain a long career as an artist.
Well, it seems like there was a point at which you could have continued to make the work that you were making before. You had all these show after show. You were
Yeah.
showing at Jack Hanley for a while, and then you showed at Natalie Carg, and then also
Mhm.
Mitchell and Miss Nash more recently, right?
Oh, right before they closed. We could talk about career stuff too, because I don't know if enough artists talk about that. But yeah, let's talk about it because it wasn't like I was making figuration because I felt I had to. It's just like I love stories, right? I loved painting these scenarios. It just is I moved away from it because I found interest in other things or tearing apart that thing I had participated in or how whatever figuration was being propelled into actually a corner, right? We're all just going towards this corner, so you have to find a way out. But I've had very supportive people in my life and working with galleries. But it's funny, I'm 43. I've been working nonstop for 10 years. I've done all the residencies. I've done all the good things. I had a certain trajectory. I stepped away from my gallery, Natalie Carg, who has an amazing eye, but it was one of these opportunities where Mitchell and Nash, which was a big gallery in Chelsea, wanted to work with me. And I thought, yeah, I'm ambitious. I want the big things. Like, I love that idea. And I was very excited to work with Lucy and her daughter Josie. I love working with women. And 2 weeks before my solo show was going to happen in September. And we were going to work on a catalog together, my first catalog. And they came to my studio right after Basel, Switzerland. And I thought, yeah, this is not good. They're tired from Basel. Why are they both coming? Especially Lucy, who's doesn't usually have to come to the studio. And I thought, okay, I better prepare myself. And everybody was like, no, you're crazy. They're just going to come and see the work. It's like a bank, right? They're too big to fail. And then they told me, oh, we're closing the gallery. And I said, oh, okay. And that was what, 2 years ago? And I feel like it was a disappointment, but I've had mentors, you know, tell me nothing. This business we're in, there's no guarantees. Nobody owes you anything. There's no contracts even. Half the time we're working without contracts and it's just a gentleman's handshake. And so when they closed, I just I had to find some other kind of meaning because it felt like a failure. Even though I had nothing to do with it, it felt like, okay, I I have to figure out a way to work through this. And it took me a while, but I think the art world is changing. And now, for the first time, I don't have any deadlines. I don't have a New York gallery, and I haven't for 2 years. And to me, you know, I had this path that I want my ambition to be realized, and I thought I would have an opportunity to do so, but that's not the case. And then a lot of you know, then your shows stop selling out because the market just changes or people don't want to spend money. I still have my gallery in LA and I still have a gallery in Dusseldorf, which is amazing, but everything just stopped. Like even the group shows I was going to be in the fall just disappeared. I don't know why. Maybe they couldn't get funding. Who knows why these things happen? But it's one of these things where I'm at the part in my life where I'm like, okay, I can turn left and become cynical and bitter and feel like I was shortchanged, or I can turn right and be resilient. And I'm a painter anyway, and I'm lucky enough to still be able to paint and have a studio. And it's one of these things you just work and you have to choose the work, right? If you choose everything else, because the studio is very different from having a career. The career has nothing to do with your practice. And there's nothing you can do about the career. I don't know if you feel this way. I don't know if networking works. I don't know if it's one of those strange things where nobody tells you, oh, you need to do this, this, and then this, and this will happen. No, there's no rhyme or reason. I talk to people from all age groups, and a lot of women I know are going through this where they feel like, oh, I guess I'm middle-aged, my career stopped, but maybe when I'm 70, I'll get rediscovered. Yay, I'll wait for that. It's just it's a strange place to be because you're just starting to come into your own in a certain way, right? You're coming into the work that maybe is going to sustain your practice for a few years. But yeah, it's like it's all, again, disappointment. But no one owes you anything, so you can't feel like you were wronged. It's just the way the world is right now, too. A lot of galleries are closing. You know this, you see it.
There's a shift happening right now,
Mhm.
and with the career stuff, the external stuff, it's just dumb luck, and you can't even
Yeah.
good or bad. It's like you're lucky or you're unlucky, whatever it is you happen to be. There's definitely a lot of shifts happening right now in the gallery world. A lot of gallery closing. I just think the model is changing. We're in it. We can't see it
Yeah.
because we're in it, and we don't know anything else but the gallery model. It's worked for a time.
Yes.
I just think there's something else or a whole different structure.
And that's so scary to me because I always believed in institutions. I believed in I believed in like the big opportunities. You know what I mean? I believed in the
Yeah.
structure in a way. Until it fails you, I feel like you believe in it until it fails you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then what you say is like the restructuring or the new model, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we take care of ourselves as artists? You know, for me, I had a mentor, Nancy Chun, who told me, you better save all your money and invest it because there's going to be times in your career where you're not going to make money at all. And I always thought about that even when I first started. So what I can say to young artists out there is invest your money and be careful and don't think the money's going to keep coming in, right? Because it's not. But you know, you can teach and you can do so many other things, even though it might feel like a letdown of having a solo studio practice where you don't need any outside whatever gigs, you know. It's I think it becomes demoralizing if you think about it in terms of your value as an artist is in relation to selling or whatever, you know? Yeah. So it's been a weird couple years for me at least. Yeah. I don't know if
For a
other
lot of people. No, I know I worked for an artist years ago who now works in retail, who
hmm
was showing at big galleries.
Yeah.
He didn't have a backup plan. He was an artist art. He still makes art, of course,
Yeah.
but he's just like, I can't pay the rent anymore. And like a lot of people, I'm sure
Yeah.
you read that Josh Klein article.
Yes. Yeah. But it's also people that write about it. It's like, oh, you're privileged. Where are you? You're like in your country home. It's kind of like, yeah, the
Yeah,
system's broken, but it might not be as broken to you as it is to like other people. You know, it's
yeah,
not
for
who
sure.
don't have like that grand of a budget to make their work, you
That's
know?
right. That's right. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that if you're in it, I mean, I think it's always been like that too. I recall that Fran Lebowitz. Did you see the Fran Lebowitz documentary, Pretend It's the
Yes.
City?
Yes, I love it.
Amazing, amazing by Martin Scorsese. If people haven't seen
Yeah.
it, they should absolutely check it out. She was talking about how nobody can afford to live in New York City at any level.
Yeah, and yet we do. Yet 8 million people live here. And
That's it.
that's the truth. And you know, I have a lot of students ask me, do I need to be in New York to make a career? And maybe 10 years ago, I would have said, yeah, you have to be in a big city because you're meeting people and you're in a community. I don't know if that's true anymore. I don't think it's true anymore. I think you can live, we all live online now and it doesn't matter, you know, but once you live in New York, it's hard to it's hard to leave because you know it's going to be even harder to come back. And most people do come back, right? It's kind of like, all right, I guess that and I moved to New York to go to Cooper Union.
Oh, so
And
quite young. Yeah.
yeah, I was young and I hated it for 9 years because I was so poor and I was a waitress and bartender. I was so poor and I would see people go out to eat and I'd be like, oh, F these people, F this. And for 9 years, I hated it, but I stuck it out because I wanted a big career. And now, you know, I'm like, do I love it or am I still here trying to make a career? It's one of those things where, you know, and it's also community too. We have community here because, you know, we've built it over years and years and years. Yeah.
That's the most
Yeah.
precious resource that we have.
Mhm.
And it's something you can't quantify, but it's so important.
Yeah. I shouldn't, I need to get back into it because I think a lot of times when you go through a setback, it's not that you hide, it's just that you don't want to expose yourself because you don't have anything going on, or I don't know what it is. It's not like I've been in hiding. I just haven't felt like I've wanted to. Like I saw you at Haley Joseph's
Hmm.
opening, and if I was weird, I was just overwhelmed because I
No, not at all.
had forgotten what going to an opening was like.
So
And
it was
it's
the first
great
one you went to
people.
in a while, huh?
Yeah, I think it was. I go see a lot of shows, but I haven't gone to a lot of openings. But if there are friends, like I'm like, okay, but it was very overwhelming because you forget that. You forget that the community is there.
But that was such a great group of people too. Yeah, Jen Packer was there, and all these
Yeah.
awesome New York painters, and you're tapping into that wonderful creative energy. I think I met you through somebody that went to Yale with you.
Was it?
Might have been Jerry Blackman, perhaps.
Yeah, probably,
Yeah,
probably. But we
yeah.
were all hanging about. I just listened to your interview with Jesse Greenberg.
Ah,
I I knew Mac, and I remember them running that gallery.
yeah.
And I don't know if it was because I was younger and more just like adventurous, and we were all having fun because it was such on a little scale. But yeah, we all knew each other. We were. It's like you would see them people at all every opening, right?
It seems like that was kind of like the spirit of New York artists in the 70s and 80s, and like the how we
Yeah.
romanticize those periods. It kind of felt like we were living it in a sense.
Yeah, and I also remember being angry then because you go to a group show and you're like, why am I not in this group show? But at the
Yeah.
same time, you would go and bitch about it. But I wonder if we're idealizing it, but I do wonder if young people have that same thing. And when I talk to my grad students at the New York Academy of Art, I don't know if they have that. I don't know if they feel like going to openings and that they're actually making connections. I'm not sure. I get a sense that that's not happening for them, and that makes me sad. But, by hook or by crook, we were in that world, right? Whether we wanted to be or not, that just was the case.
I remember coming back from those shows and openings and being so energized. And I
Yeah.
realized that I was really pulling from that. And I still do when I go out to openings. The night that I saw you, we were hanging out with all the Yaleys and Haley Josephs and everybody that was, I don't want to say that those people are better than other people, but you kind of felt like they were your people in a sense.
Yeah, Haley's a good painter too.
Oh,
So
she's awesome.
it's
She's so
fun.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun to see good work, and then it's depressing if you're not seeing it. Because there's been many times I've walked away from Chelsea or Tribeca, and I'm just so dispirited. I get the sense though that you're an optimist. I am not, but I like that you have a positive energy because I do not. So, and when I see a lot of bad stuff, I just get in a real bad mood. I think the good shows they do make you want to go to your studio and paint. I think that's always the case, right? You see a good show and you're like, damn, I got to get to the studio. But when you see a bad show, you just go to the bar and like, have to get trashed because you're so depressed.
Oh wow. Yeah, but the fact that you can tap into it, that you can feel it on that level, that you're in tune with the quality of what's happening with the work and what you're interested in on that level is really a gift because most people, I mean, far worse than either of those two things is to be ambivalent.
I know, but I find myself getting older and older and being like, I don't know if I care. And I talk to my friends about this, and it worries me because I don't want to go to see contemporary art shows. And that worries me. That
Mm.
does, because I used to be so excited. And I don't know if it's because I'm personally going through a career shift and I feel disappointment, or if I just feel like I'm already going to be disappointed when I go. Like I have to go see museum shows now because at least it's a guarantee. And I know I'm missing out on things, but it becomes harder and harder to be motivated right now. I want to be motivated to see things, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just depressed. I have no idea. I
Well,
want to see
no.
things.
Yeah, you could just be refining your sensibilities. I talked to Donna Nelson. That's one of my favorite ones. If you have heard,
Yeah.
she goes to see shows all the time, but
Yeah.
she doesn't take anything from those shows. She looks at those shows just
Yeah.
purely for enjoyment. She knows she's not going to bring anything back to the studio from those.
We talk about the Met. They have the costume show, like art, the body of art, whatever art is the body, who knows? And I get more from fashion because there's a certain level that these designers are tapping into where they can tell they're started at one place and they can walk you through the influences and you see it. You see the dedication to materials that they're using. And so for me, I see innovation in fashion more than I see it in painting. And so I want to see it in painting. I don't, and I still see good shots. I'm not saying, oh, everything's crap and I'm the best painter. No, fuck no. But I don't feel as inspired as I do from other things now. Now it's
That's,
like, do I want to see an art show? No. So
I think that's probably a sign of artistic maturity.
see your positive.
I try to be. You can look at anything from any angle because there's no really one objective reality. You can see it any way you want. Another thing that I'm hearing is that you're being influenced by things. Let me start with the question. What else might you
Yeah,
be?
literature too. Yeah,
Yeah.
literature. I think there's a lot of great young writers.
What do you read?
There's a writer, I just read her new book, Audition, and it's a Katie Kitamura, and she was like National Book Award, long list, whatever. And it was such a crazy book. And I suggest people go out and read it. The structure of it, like George Saunders writes crazy things, but you believe them. So I'm reading this book by her, Audition, and I haven't felt this way in a long time where I was like, I'm shocked, I'm mortified, I'm turned on, I'm sad, I'm scared. And it was one of these things where I really felt a lot that I haven't felt in a long time. So I think literature, for me, the artistry of it, when something's well written and it's in a genre you have no interest in, yet you still get pulled in. That's what I think about painting. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do that with painting. How do I do that thing? How do I have this structure? Listen, in film, literature, music, whatever, I'm surprised by things still. I'm like, oh yeah, that was great. That was everything. I need to start seeing that in painting. I really do. I need to start seeing it again because I think we're behind everything else. It's like a renaissance for other things. And there needs to be gallerists that actually care and directors that care about art and curators. Curators, like, I've never heard of that artist. Like, they should know every artist. That's your job. That is basically your job is to go to studio visits and not put the same five people on the show, the group shows. There needs to be some accountability for your chosen profession. Like the curators or the directors, they're just biding their time until they go on to art management or to.
They could buy their house in the Hamptons, whatever it is.
Yeah,
That's why it was so refreshing talking to Jesse Greenberg because he's a guy that I'm like, that's the future. Somebody that's really, really looking, really
yeah,
interested, putting out open calls and getting 30,000 applications or whatever it is for a show that doesn't even exist yet. And he doesn't have a space. And he's just
yeah,
really, really looking and really curious. And I think, and you know what it is? I think it's not material capital anymore that we
yeah,
are going to be concerned about. It's cultural capital. It's what can you bring to the table intellectually, creatively,
yeah,
that has nothing to do with markets. That's
yeah.
like my utopian, but I think it is the future.
Well, I hope because again, you have to be very careful with your money. Like I see young artists that are from the beginning and then they start doing well and they have like their Chanel bags and
Oh no.
the nice things. They're on yachts, and I'm like, you're not a rich person. You're an artist. Why? And then they're broke, and they have to like leave their studio, leave that $7,000 apartment. You see that all the time because it's not like that anymore.
You got to
It's
keep it
not.
low overhead.
You do. You do. Actually, a good painter that I love, Dana Locke, because I followed her career for a long time. And when I see her shows, I'm like, damn it, I got to go to the studio. So
She
just
is
to get
so
back.
good.
She's so conceptually they're interesting, but visually interesting, and the way they're painted are it's beautiful. So I get jealous of Dana Locke a lot when
I've
I
been a
see her.
little jealous of her, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like excited because I've seen her career span over years and years and years. And I'm not necessarily friends with her. I admire her, but I'm not close friends by any means. But other things I also like biography. I'll listen to biographies in the studio when I'm painting because, you see a trajectory of someone's life and it's like they hit rock bottom, then they did this, then they did this, and then they fell again. And so I really get energized and hopeful when I hear a whole person's life drawn out and you see the dark parts and the positive parts. And then at the end, they're still dead. They're they're still dead, but you're like, all right, things, this is life. This is what happens. So I get inspiration from that too.
It's interesting to see the macro view of it, the whole thing laid out, and it
Hmm.
kind of changes. You're like, oh, that's all it was. They did this and this and this.
Yeah.
Especially if you just get the basic topography of a life. Even a huge biography is still just a barely skimming the surface of what the quality, what their life was actually like.
Yeah.
Just getting a little glimpse of it.
No, the one thing I'll recommend is the Susan Sontag. I listened to it on Spotify, her biography. And I think it's by someone Moser. I don't know, look it up. And it was so interesting because she was so diligent in her ideas and stuff. And then they became dated. I don't know. And then she failed at writing novels in that way. And I thought that was a really good biography to listen to in the studio.
Everything's temporary and everything is for a certain place and time. I think as artists, the best thing we can do is contribute. I mean, the only thing we can do is really contribute in a certain way, in a certain place and time. And there's a
Yeah.
shelf life for everything.
Hmm.
And that doesn't mean that careers don't fluctuate and come good. You know,
Yeah.
you go here, whatever it is. But still, like you ask people, what about this artist? They were so cool back in it was somebody like Bouguereau or something.
Yeah.
He was like the predominant artist basically in the Western world for a time. And now people are like, who?
I was just talking to a friend about this, the McKierney gallery, Miles
Mhm.
McKierney.
Yeah.
And I was looking at their roster. I'm like, oh my God, these are artists that I was paying attention to in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was in undergrad. And it's a lot of artists that are now showing with him. I think they're revamping their program, but I just thought that was interesting because I was like, I remember this person, this person, this person. And artists don't really go away, but I just found that really interesting that they were getting grouped into this other space. It's like people are doing their due diligence and going back and be like, who was big in the 2000s? And it's kind of like, let's, bring them back to this gallery. I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And at the time, it seemed like they would never get old when you were looking at them.
I know it's kind of like you look at Neo Rausch, like I love Neo Rausch when I was in high school. Now I'm like, I can't look at another painting of his because they're all the same. To me now, it's just like they've melded into one big Neo Rausch painting of workmen and women cooking, whatever, and bright colors. I can't look at it anymore.
I used to love those paintings. Yeah.
I know.
What do you gravitate towards when you go to the museum?
Oh God. Honestly, a lot of things I've been seeing now have been video art, which I'm kind of shocked to say that because I am so into painting because or it's Manet, I go like, oh, I want to see some Manet. Uh, but it's not the things that I used to, like it's not the paintings that have given me comfort. It's almost like I've divorced them and now like it's like an ex, seeing an ex, and you're like, oh God, I don't ever want to have to deal with this person again in my life. And there's been artists that I've hated and now I love. I think Maria Lasnig was an artist where I was like, I hate these, and now I'm like, oh my God, I love these. These are amazing. I don't know why I was like I objected to her and that work, but it just did. So I think it switches, right? The things you love become the things you hate, and the things you hate now you're like, oh no, they were great all along. It took me a minute to catch up with them.
It's really important to have that flexibility
Yeah.
of realizing that actually, I was wrong, or not even wrong, but just my tastes have changed. I like this now. Not just the art is a living thing or your process, but the way that you consume art.
Well, also, I think you have to be really critical. I think criticality is really, really important. I think we're lacking that as a culture. I mean, the most critical thing I read was a review of the Odyssey by the woman who did the recent translation.
Oh, you
And
read
she
that,
broke
yeah.
down the film, and I thought, oh yeah, that's good. But also, well, like Calvin Tompkins, he did that New Yorker profile of Via Selmans, and he was like, "Oh, she had perfect taste. She hated everything." I love that. I think that's a really good thing. I think for me, I like to hate everything because for me, hating leads to more understanding. I want to understand why I hate something. I don't want to understand why I love something because I love it. I want to understand why I hate something and break that apart to think, well, why do I have this reaction to it? And therefore, like I'm going deeper into that thing that I hate more than the thing I love. So,
So it's like a via negativa process,
yeah, yeah, kind of.
right? Like to find God, you have to identify everything that it's not, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's true. And I think a lot of like or Graham Greene when he talks about in the end of the affair where this Bendrix guy, he's like, oh, he was a good hater. I love that. I want to be a good hater. You know, I want to be an all opportunistic hater. I want to hate everything because that's the only way I can find interest anymore.
Well, but
You know?
I was yeah, that's really good. I kind of I want to say I love that hate
Mhm.
because it reflects a kind of a real deep inquisition, passion, and
Yeah.
looking and really considering real criticality. What is it? I think it's necessary to have strong views like that to form a strong studio practice,
Yeah.
even
I mean,
subconsciously.
yeah. I don't know if you grew up in this era, but when I was in school, like especially at Cooper, um, it's kind of like people were so critical. I remember someone, and this might have been me that did this, taking a piece off the wall during crit, putting it on the ground and jumping on it and putting it in the trash because we thought it was junk. You know, it was someone's artwork. And I've
Wait.
always,
It was somebody else's. It wasn't yours.
no, it was someone else's. That's how the crits went down during that time, 2006, 2005, 2006. And people would be like, this is bullshit. You're a disgusting artist. This doesn't make sense. And it was a very competitive place. But even then I went to grad school and it was still that kind of situation where it was like tough, but I thrive on that. I know some people break down where it's like, oh, it's about me. You're talking about me. I'm like, no, they're talking about the work. And you're allowed to criticize the work because it is not just an object in a space. You're going to look at it and you're going to think, what is this? And if it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing and it's failing, for one, I want to know that. I want to know if it's failing in some way because that's how I learn. But you can't teach like that anymore. Trust me, you cannot.
So, right. So the pit at Yale,
Yeah.
place where they do the critiques, and it's legendary for, especially in those days, of being a very brutal, cutthroat, like people are running away crying after critiques.
Yeah. I remember after one critique, this man came up to me and said I was a cunt because of my criticism. But that's how it was. And he apologized later that year, but it was like, no problem. People get passionate.
I
It,
came
what are
up
you
around
gonna
the
do?
same time. We had some intense ones. I went to the University of Illinois. It was definitely not Yale, certainly. There was some
Still a
heated.
great school. Yeah.
It's a great school, yeah. And there's some heated critiques in which feelings were hurt. Things were said that were not. I think that wouldn't be said now.
Yeah.
Before I get too, I really want to circle back to the stomping on the painting.
Yeah.
So you stomped on somebody's painting, or somebody did?
I feel like it was either me because it was, first of all, Cooper was a boys club. It was like the era of Bruce High Quality and like these male dominated artists. And I remember a professor saying, "Oh, you're a feminist," then just like, just paint a lot of vaginas. And I was like, "What?" It's one of these things. So I was always I think my anger was a way of me dealing with feeling inadequate because I think as a woman, I was made to feel inadequate there during that era. It's not to say that we didn't have like women supporting women there, but it was just a different time period where, feminism back then, when I was starting to become a painter, it was kind of like you had to embody masculinity to be taken seriously. Now it's like that's crazy because that doesn't make sense. But I think during the crits, like Nikki Logis taught drawing, and we would have a crit in the evening, and she would hand a student a $20 bill and say, "Get the biggest jug of whiskey you can find." And then the kid would bring whiskey and we would just go all night and just think, yeah, things were said, people were angry, but it was a lot of conversation. Whether it was, who was in the wrong or who was right, it didn't matter because we were trying to talk about something, right? We were trying to understand something, even if we didn't say it in the nicest way or didn't talk about it in the nicest way. So I feel like maybe I threw someone's artwork in the trash and I apologize to that person. But I think that happened a lot back then. I don't know.
I respect taking a strong stand about art. When I first moved to the city, it was back in 2013, I believe, and I got a job as the handyman at David's Werner.
Yeah, wow.
And yeah, and that's how indirectly I met most of the people in the city just from that job. And I met people through there. There was parties. That's how I got the space I'm living in now, is through a friend that was working as where her friend had this space. Anyway, I was like the first week I was there, I was tasked with doing crowd control for the Yayoi Kusama
Oh my
Infinity
God.
Room.
Yeah.
And I was just astounded that people, they were getting mad, like upset, because they're like, we've been in line for an hour. We want to see them. I'm just like, what? Like to come to the city, like from the Midwest, to come to a place where people are mad about seeing art, I respect
Yeah.
that. That was awesome.
Yeah. Oh my God. Recently I went to the Guggenheim and they have one of those infinity rooms. I don't know if there was a big line, but I went with a friend of mine and the security guard's like, hey, you want to see the infinity room? And I looked at him, I'm like, not really. And I just walked away. But
You didn't go in.
well, I think you can say the same thing too. I'm from California, where we live in a private kind of private space because we're in cars. You come to New York and you're confronted with all of that. You're confronted with every emotion, and you have to learn to accept it and not fight it. If you fight it, they're just going to shit on you even more.
Oh
So it's one
yeah.
of those things. You have to be tough. You have to be tough here. And I respect that about New York. I think you have the hustle here because I lived a year in Dusseldorf, and I remember someone in the studio being like, "Oh, you're working on a Saturday? Why would you do that? It's the weekend." And it's kind of like New York, there's no weekends in New York. Everybody's hustling, everybody's working. That's what I love about New York, though. Everybody's working, and it's good. It's good to be part of that.
It's amazing energy. I think it is hard for the first number of years, just on a
Yeah,
physiological level, right? So much stimulation, and you're probably working three jobs that suck or whatever it is, and
yeah,
you haven't really found a groove yet. But if you
yeah.
can tap into the energy of it, it's powerful.
Yeah. And if you can feel busy in a good way, then you feel powerful here because you feel like you're in the business suit going to Wall Street. If you're in the studio and you're like, yeah, I got things going on. I think there's nothing better than future opportunities. I don't care about past, anything that happened in the past, I don't care about. It's like, what's in the future? Where am I going? And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but I've always operated that way. I don't know. Do you think about that where it's like the next thing?
Oh yeah, what's about possibility, right?
Yeah,
Your work is about possibility. New York is so much about possibility
yeah,
and finding what is possible in your studio practice, what is
yeah,
possible in your life. And we're so lucky to be in a place where we have possibilities, because I think the worst thing you can do to a person, to any creature really, is to destroy all hope of possibility.
yeah,
That's where it is. Like, I could become this, I could do that, and I can be
yeah.
an artist if I want to. And just to have that choice, I think that's the next level of a culture, of a society, is that everybody could have that possibility.
And I think that goes back to how I feel about my career because there's nothing on the horizon, which is also, I'm like, oh, it's an opportunity to experiment and just be with the work. And that's the positive way of looking at it, right? I can't think that this will always be the case. Because you want to believe that someone will see something in your work and want to champion it or help you grow into something else, right? Or into a more ambitious kind of project. But yeah, I don't know. When you take all that away, when you take opportunities away from someone who is ambitious, it's kind of like, okay, what am I left with? If I don't go towards my ambition, what is the opposite of that? And is it still a positive thing? I don't know. I'm figuring all this out. Like a lot of people are in their career. I think a lot of people in all, I've had friends that have lost book deals. I have friends and they've been, working for 25 years in the business. And it's kind of like, okay, what do I do now? But I think that's across a lot of different things. I have friends that have been let go from their jobs, their corporate jobs. I don't know. It's a strange time right now. What do you do?
Truly,
Yeah,
I think you have to lean on the community and look inward.
yeah, yeah,
It's really refreshing just to hear you talk candidly, and I appreciate that about these things, career things, because I think people are, as you said earlier, they can be a little ashamed of it. Like, oh, what am I? I'm not. Often, if you're not showing, then people ask you, what do you got coming up? What are you showing? And then, you feel like self-conscious about it. But It's not about the external stuff at all, but it is about connections. That's the thing they're showing is kind of a tricky thing because when you're showing, you're automatically connecting because people are seeing it and they
Yeah.
say, oh, wow, they can have a reaction. You can talk about your work. There are other avenues for that and ways of, or even just more studio visits or just talking about your work and having these conversations like we're having now activates it. I'm not going to say there's like a solution and this is it.
No, I don't, yeah.
Leaning in on the community and your practice, what it means to you, and really going deep into it seems to be like kind of antidotes.
But it's also like, why the fuck do I feel like I have the privilege to put more shit out there? I mean, like, and I love painting, but I'm kind of like, we've been conditioned, especially the way the
Yeah.
world is. You talk about this earlier. Go, go, go. Say yes to every opportunity because they can be taken away and they will be eventually for most people. And it's kind of this mentality of go, go, go. And other artists during different eras did not work this way. It's unnatural what we're doing and how we're consuming. So that's how I'm spinning it anyway. That I'm like, I don't need to put work out right now. I just need to like, why should I feel like I want people to pay attention? That's something like I think we have to ask ourselves, what's the difference between participation and attention? What's the difference between the actual work and then how it's valued? Do you know what I mean? Like there's things that I think we have to reckon with, and that's what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to reckon with it in a way that's not demoralizing. At least I'm trying to do that. I sometimes some days are harder than others, but again, I am lucky enough to have a studio to go to and paint. I can paint all day, if I want to. And that's what I don't know what more. I mean, there's a lot more to that, a lot more like I want, but right now it's not about wanting something. It's kind of just maintaining something that I get to do, right? Or something that I want to do.
But you're absolutely right about making a thing, just filling the world up with more objects. I had thought about that a lot because I was producing a lot of paintings that were just going in a closet, basically, or just going in storage right away. And so now instead of making 10, I'll make one. I've actually slowed down the process. So now I've made 4 paintings in the past year and a half or something rather than 50 or whatever it would be. I don't even know. But it's true that we live in a certain time that's very much product oriented. As soon as you put something on Instagram, it's already old, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
think of a piece like the Ghent altarpiece. I had the privilege of seeing it last summer, and it took Van Eyck in his studio 10 years to make this thing, working on it full
Yeah.
time. And it is just astounding. If anybody can make something even close to what that is, and you spend your whole life doing it, that's worth it, I think. But how do you slow it down?
Well, I think that's what we're seeing in contemporary art that's maybe a failing is there's no dedication anymore because you have to produce. So there's no like, oh, I get to sit with this for 5 years and decide that it's good enough to be seen. There's none of that consideration. I once talked to this young painter and they were like, well, I can make anything and it's going to sell. And it's like, well, why would you want to think that way? That was very sad to me. Uh, because then there was no real responsibility. And maybe we, as artists, we've lost the responsibility that the work deserves. Maybe like the work deserves to be taken seriously and considered. And I think we've, we're lacking in some part of that idea of dedication, the idea of devotion, the idea of making something that really, really matters and not just to make it to be shown or traded uh, on auction. I don't know. That's something I'm figuring out again this these next couple of years. I'm kind of like, what does the work deserve right now? Not what I deserve as a person or anything. It's like, what does the work deserve? And I don't think we're allowed to ask that question a lot, you know?
I'm sure most people never ask that question or even think of it.
I would hope so. I mean, I would, if I was being idealistic, I'm like every artist is dedicated to their work. I don't know. That's not true for a fact because I've been to Tribeca recently.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but many are. I'm sure it's
yeah.
somewhere, but there's a spectrum there, right?
Yes, yes, for
Yeah.
sure. You
Oh
know,
man. Maybe you could quickly walk us through the process of making one of your paintings and how you might start. Or do you start with an
yeah.
idea or is it a
Well,
sketch? What is it?
No, I hate drawing. I don't know how like painters draw. I'm not, I get frustrated. So I never draw. I usually write notes of like, oh, this color blue and this orange. And I start off with a kind of a challenge or a problem. I'm like, oh, I hate the color green. How do I make a green painting that I love? How do I deal with I hated purple. And I'm like, I want to work with this color that I don't want to be around. So how do I make it so I can fall in love with it and you fold it into my practice in some meaningful way? So it's usually it's a challenge and it's a problem. And then I'll start with some idea or some structure, but it usually disappears by the time I'm done because I think you just need to start. I mean, I have so many blank canvases in my studio right now, and I know I just have to start. And it doesn't have to be good at all. It just has to be a start. So I'll do that and I'll play around. And again, I really believe this where some paint, like if I work on 14 paintings at one time, and they're pretty big. I put them all in my studio, and because I get fed up easily and I get impatient, because oil paint, it takes a while to dry. So I always need to have an option of escape. Like I need an escape plan for working on a painting where I'm like, oh, I can go over here and work on this thing. So I need a lot of options, which I guess goes along with the idea of freedom, you know. But there's some paintings when you know you start it, you're like, oh, this painting is going to give me the worst time. And then there's some paintings, there's probably one in the series of like, 13 paintings, 14 paintings, where you're like, oh, this was great from the start. And it just bends to your will right away. So those paintings I'm excited about, but then the ones that are hard are the ones that are the ones that make me work for it. And I like that. They put me through my paces. But that's how I work. I just start and I make a mess and I think about more of color now uh, than form when I'm starting out. But also, I have a bucket. I don't waste any paint because, like, hello, oil paint's expensive. I put all the paint I don't use in this bucket, so it's like a slot bucket, and I draw on the canvas or paint on the canvas with that. And sometimes I just pour it, and I'm like, oh, this color is awful, and I like that.
It's like a
So,
usually like a grayish color, I assume.
yeah, brown color. It's just a color that shouldn't exist, maybe. And I'm interested in the things that, shouldn't exist. This shouldn't be like that. And I don't know. I think the last 2 years, because of the setbacks, I don't know if I was scrambling because I like the work that I was making, but I don't know if it was the work I should have been making, if that makes sense. I think there's life stuff that happens. I think you get the paintings that you get at the time of your life. It's almost like a journal entry. You go back and you cringe at it, but you're like, well, that was me then. I can't erase that. That's February 1997. I thought this. So I try to be easy on myself in that regard, where I would like to be at a certain somewhere in the work, but that's not how it goes, right? You just have to give into it and hopefully it teaches you something so the next body of work gets you closer to that idea you had in your mind, right?
Yeah, and it sounds like the recent what you call setbacks, it sounds like you're able to see them not really necessarily as setbacks, but opportunities.
Listen, I wouldn't go that far. That's your positive spin on
Yeah,
it, but
yeah, yeah. But I suppose I'm saying that because it seems like in your work, you're able to
yeah,
do that. You're able to turn problems into opportunities. And
yeah,
perhaps this whole thing is like a macro. If you step back from the more immediate issue, then perhaps over time it makes more sense. And perhaps the
yeah,
same thing could be said with the way the art market is, the gallery is closing, the
yeah.
whole system itself, it seems to be going through some growing pains.
When you make work when you're young, it's to belong. And then when I'm at the point where I want to make work to not participate, not belong, it's one of those weird things where you're like, yeah, I want to be in this thing. And then you're like, nah, I want to be outside of it because that's where the interesting things happen. A lot of the artists I like are outside of that sphere. It's a point of the work is failing maybe, or it's dangerous in some kind of way. And it's like, well, what does that look like? I want to see what something looks like when I have a total disregard for things or ego or whatever it is. It's like I want to see that in the work, and I'm kind of like, well, how do I get there? I don't know if it's being kicked around or let go, or I don't know. I'm figuring it out. You
It's
know,
good.
I didn't even think I would be at this point in my life. Not that I would think I'm going up a ladder because there's no ladder in art, but it was like, oh, I'm back where I was in grad school, like out of grad school. How interesting. I feel like I'm starting from scratch, and maybe it's like, okay, well, then maybe it was meant to be because the kind of work I want to get to is maybe just starting now. I have to believe that.
Oh yeah. That's the great thing about visual art is that at any point, at any kind of art, it's always there for you and you can always develop it. It's not like you're being your sports, it's not like you're trying to get your tennis career revitalized, whatever
No,
it
it's like
is.
I'm not Serena Williams, or like she came out of semi-retirement, and I mean she's still so powerful. And it's kind of like, yeah, I get to do this for the rest of my life, hopefully, if I take care of my body and I stop drinking so much wine. I think I can go towards to 70 at least. So, it's
Yeah,
one of
at
the,
any point. I know painters in their 80s that are doing some of their best work now.
yeah, I believe that.
Wherever you are, it's like you're putting it in. You can see it in the paintings. And I like what you said about going back, looking at work from when you were young and sort of feeling like, oh my God. But then that was necessary to get to the next thing. And then so what you're doing now is necessary for the next thing and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And there was a Charlene von Heil interview with I think Rubenstein, whatever, and she said, I don't think about making a good painting. I just want to make a painting. And that's the thing. It's kind of like when I finish a series, it's almost like I get amnesia and I forget everything I did in a way. So then I have to start over. I feel like I'm always starting over. And I think of the work as kind of like it doesn't exist for me anymore. Like I'm like, it's dead to me. I took everything I needed to, and now it's gone, and I don't care how it is in the world. I don't care what it's doing, but it's like, well, what can I do? What's the next thing? I don't know. Maybe that's a very existential way to look at it. I'm not sure. Because I know people that are very precious. Like my students, when they hang up a painting in their studio, I'm like, well, why do you have this old painting there? They're like, that's the best thing I ever did. I said, take it down. The best thing you ever did hasn't even happened yet. That's how I feel. I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I might love certain things, but if that was the best I can do, I might as well just stop right now, you know? Then all the questions I've asked have been answered, and that's no fun. What am I going to do with that?
So you said you have specifically 14 paintings at once,
Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's like,
but a lot.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
And I like to work all like in a whole series. I think that's when for me, when I have a series to work on and it's not one-off paintings, because I've done so many one-off paintings for art fairs, I can't work that way anymore because I don't know if I learn enough from that. And I need to be learning a lot. So when I work in a series, I'm trying to look at them and see how far apart can I make each painting. So if I'm working on like 13, 14 paintings and I have to make them so different from the next, then I'm learning a lot because I'm not trying to make them all look the same. I'm trying to assign the paintings their own kind of job. And they have to be very, very different jobs. They can't match way. They have to come from one place, but they better go in so many different directions. That's how I feel a successful series. For me, when I do a show, I'm like, yes, okay, this painting was doing this, this painting was trying to do this. No two paintings are trying to do the same thing in a series. So that's how I learn because I'm constantly trying to pit the paintings against, themselves or whatever. And you learn a lot by trying to make each one do something different. That's how I can work. That's the best way I can work.
Against each other, basically.
Yeah, they have to be against each other and they can't support each other. They have to be their own leading actors or actresses or something. There's no supporting. There shouldn't be. I mean, some paintings look are stronger than others, but that's just the mindset I'm in. Sometimes I'll see a painting and be like, oh no, this was doing this, and this was more important than that thing that was, and I think dealers have this thing. I swear to God, every dealer has done this to me where you do a show and they're like, This painting, I could have sold it 10 times. That's their way of telling you as an artist without having to say it, you should make more of this. So everybody beware of that. Because I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. That's nice. 10 different people wanted that, but that's not my problem. You know?
They don't have your interest necessarily in mind. As an artist, they
Yeah.
might, but chances are
They
they
might,
just,
but listen, they're trying to make money too. I don't
of
blame them.
course, yeah,
They're hustlers. They have to be, you know? So I
yeah.
blame them for that. But it's one of these funny things where it's always like one painting. They're like, oh, this painting that could have sold 10 times. And you're like, oh, well, right now, maybe, maybe not
Yeah.
tomorrow or a week from now. I don't know. So, yeah.
So the paintings they might work against each other, but they still are a group. They're still a
Yeah, I consider
series.
them, yeah, a body of work. They're part of the same series. I'm working on all of them at the same time. They're a thesis, right? But there's different chapters to it. There's different arguments, but it makes up a book. It makes up, for me, hopefully, it makes up a cohesive feeling. Like it's more of an atmosphere or a feeling. And maybe they all work together in that regard, where they're building up something like a mountain, and then you go on top and you see the whole view. I, I hope so. I think that's what happens, but they better all be doing something different to get there, to paint the whole picture. They better be active in very different ways. Because I do it to learn. I do it to move on to the next thing. And I think a good series will leave you with more questions and answers. I always say that. I say that to my students. I'm like, it's okay to have questions after you finish something. And if you don't, I think there's something wrong there. It shouldn't be a period. It should be an ellipses at the end. Every show you do should just be like to be continued.
I think people want some resolution.
But we don't get that. We don't get that in real life. Why do we expect it from art? I mean, some of my favorite films, like oh God, what is it? The 400 Blows, where they leave the kid on the beach and it pans out and you don't know what his future is going to be. It's like there's not always a death at the end. There's not always, and even when people come together in a romantic comedy, like, I love you, yay, they might break up a month later. We don't know. So there's no resolution.
That's how life is, right? Yeah, exactly. You were interested in the body before. When I first met you back in the glory days of 2000, what was it, 13, 14,
Yeah.
15, something. You were interested in forms that were bodily, and you still have that's evolved through your work over the course of these years. But you still maintain an interest in the body, right?
Yeah, because I don't know how the body should function. And I don't know what femininity is anymore. I don't even know how I feel about it anymore. And this is what I still have a lot of questions in how I speak to this because it's such a big thing to contend with, right? You talk about identity, you talk about gender, and a lot of times it's just your identity. It's people, it's like, oh, this is me, and this is, I'm a woman, and I identify as this. I don't care about myself. So how do I think of gender in a more philosophical way through imagery, through paint? I I don't know yet. And I read all the things you're supposed to read. I I try to think about it in new ways. I try to paint the body in new ways because again, I am getting older. My body's changing. The way I relate to it is changing. And sometimes it feels like a foreign thing. So I'm like, well, how do I paint the isolation? I think Joan Samel does that a lot too, where she's painting from a perspective of like, I'm inside this thing and we're in this container. And for me, it's like, well, how many different ways can I represent this complicated thing, this complicated idea? How many different ways can I represent that? Because I don't have the answer. I don't have the be all. This is how this should be represented, and that's it. And I think there's a lot of problems now with figuration that's handling that kind of stuff, but it's in the way we've always talked about, again, figuration, where it's like, here are me and my friends, and it's inclusive and it's this. And I'm like, well, I don't know if I learn anything new because people that usually like art, we're all open-minded, we're all understanding. We all want to be inclusive, It's one of these things where, well, how can we talk about it in a different way? Because it is especially the country we live in and the times we live in. And I feel like that as a woman, I mean, I just read in the headlines that they want to do physical exams on female athletes to make sure that they're female. And that to me is disgusting. It's so disgusting and abhorrent. So I think a lot about that when I paint. I think a lot about that kind of relationship politically that we have to the body, and whether how anybody feels about their body. And it's kind of like I feel helpless, but maybe I'm trying to contend with that helplessness in the work. I'm not sure. I'm
Hmm.
not sure. And it's one of these elusive things. And I think that's why I keep pursuing it because I still don't know how to talk about that. I don't know how to talk really about gender because I can only talk about, again, my own experience, how I exist in my own body and how I feel as a woman or how I identify as a woman. That's all I can talk about. But I'm trying to look at it in different ways. And the only way I can do that that's authentic to me in that argument is through paint, with my relationship to paint. That's the only way I can deal with it intelligently because obviously my views or how I talk about it, how I think about it, I still I still feel confused by it. I still feel confused about my own feelings of what I'm painting. But I'm painting, so that's the only way I can make it matter is through that. I don't know.
You have to be honest and genuine and sincere, and you are. So I greatly appreciate that. And I greatly
Thanks.
appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like conversations too, I think you could take out the first 15 minutes because then you start to get on a roll, and that's when I have friends like I talk to on the phone, and in that hour and a half, because we're both painting on the other end, an hour and a half, we start getting to the good stuff. So you
Yep.
could knock off the first half hour and just keep the rest, and there you go.
Well, it's like that in painting too. When you're painting, I find that, it takes me a little
Mhm.
bit just to get into it. And then before you know it, you're in it.
Yeah,
But you have to be patient with everything worthwhile does require patience, art, conversation, people,
yeah,
really looking deeply into it. I worry that as a culture, we're losing, because of the attack on our attention,
yeah,
that we're losing the ability to give things time and really get to the deeper nature, the deeper quality of things.
yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate the conversation, the opportunity to even talk about art in this way, I think is special. I think it's something to really, really consider its importance. And so I thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I needed this conversation today. So I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for saying so. I think it is incredibly important. Really appreciate your candid nature and your effort in the studio. What you're doing in the studio is incredibly important.
Thank you. Thank you.
Before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Oh God, I think I've said enough. Until the next time, I feel like you have such a voice where I feel like the podcast can just keep growing and growing. So then you'll have to revisit artists that you interviewed years and years ago to see where they're at. I think you should do like
Yeah,
a reunion episodes in the
I'd love
future.
to. Let's talk again. We'll
Okay,
do a
thank
part
you
two.
so much.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay.